Tonight, dangerous storms strike deep in the heart of Texas. Terrifying scenes in the Lone Star State, the damage already catastrophic. Rivers rising to record levels, and it could get worse in the hours ahead.
We going right here?
We'll have the latest.
Catastrophic flooding and high water rescues. I'm Janet Shamlian in Texas. We're along for the ride.
Also tonight, Gaza's ceasefire and hostage talks intensify in Egypt.
I'm Ramy Inocencio in Tel Aviv in one of the biggest anti-government pro-ceasefire rallies since October 7th. Israel says it will not send a delegation to Cairo for talks with Hamas until the militant group responds to its proposal.
Plus, as college graduations begin, some are met with protests. Trouble today at the University of Virginia. And disruptions in Michigan. 2 Florida teens turned themselves in after being caught on camera dumping garbage into the ocean. And later, she was the majesty of the seas. The Queen Mary, her reign ending in California. Why it's once again full steam ahead.
There's a soul here that other ships don't have, but the Queen Mary has.
This is the CBS Weekend News from Washington with Adriana Diaz.
Good evening. I'm Ed O'Keefe in tonight for Adriana. We begin in Texas, where there's a brief break in the rain, but a flood watch in effect through Sunday afternoon across the third most populated part of the country. Some areas of Texas have already seen 12 inches fall in recent days, triggering mandatory evacuations. The governor has issued disaster declarations for almost 90 of the state's 254 counties. Several storms could produce large hail and spawn strong tornadoes. Houston especially has been swamped, and that's where we find CBS's Janet Shamlian deep in the flood zone in the Channel View community. Janet, good evening.
And good evening to you. We were with first responders today as they put themselves at risk amid an unfolding emergency, with floodwaters here still rising. Relentless floodwaters rising in southeast Texas, even amid a break in the rain. But no rest for first responders. This neighborhood has not seen the worst of it yet?
No, that's the sad part.
We joined Harris County Sheriff's deputies on an airboat, making rescues around the clock.
This is the worst I've seen, second only to Hurricane Harvey.
Lieutenant David Jasper says this neighborhood has been under a mandatory evacuation order for days, and yet we met people refusing to leave. They could take you to a shelter.
No, ma'am, I got my truck over the other side of the street.
This family decided time had run out to stay in their flooded home, deputies ferrying them to drier ground. The sheriff of the nation's third largest county, Ed Gonzalez, told me the danger still exists.
It's a beautiful day, it's a sunny day, but yet the water can be very treacherous. More water is on its way as well with more rain.
But tonight, encouraging news about the Texas family seen in this now viral video.
Get in the car! Get in the car!
Please, God, help! Rescued by a storm chaser after a tornado leveled their home. They're recovering. Casey Lambert crediting the power of prayer.
And I tried to just embrace my family. And my thoughts were, well, at least we're together. And Daddy says I kept praying through the whole thing.
And back here in the flood zone, this is the launch area, one of the launch areas for the boats that they put in the water to make those rescues. It's work that's going to continue into this evening, but of course gets much more dangerous after dark. Ed?
Janet Shamlian, thanks to you and your team. And there is severe weather tonight in other parts of the country beyond Texas. Let's bring in meteorologist Paul Goodloe from our partners at the Weather Channel.
Well, Ed, the month of May is typically the rainiest month for most cities across the state of Texas. But I tell you what, some cities have picked up perhaps 2 or 3 times that amount of rain just in the first couple of days of May. So that is leading to a lot of flooding. Every single triangle is a river here in southeastern Texas in minor, moderate, or major flooding. And there's more rain to come. Storms developing this evening keep pushing overnight. I'm definitely concerned about the Houston area for more rain coming throughout the day on Sunday. But wait, there's more. Winter storm warning out towards the west in the Sierra. Snow levels around 5,000 feet. Yes, some snow there, but that same system pushes eastward. And yes, May is also the most active month for severe weather, including tornadoes. We're going to have the triggering mechanisms for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for more severe weather to come across some of the same areas that have been devastated the last week or two by tornadoes. Yes, Monday a threat, Tuesday a threat, Wednesday a threat. from the plains, Texas, into the Midwest and Ohio Valley, so definitely be weather aware this coming week. Ed?
Paul Goodlow of the Weather Channel, thank you. Now overseas, we've heard this several times before in recent months, but tonight there is fresh hope for at least a temporary peace in the Middle East. That's because CIA Director Bill Burns is in Cairo, where mediators are trying to reach a new hostage and ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. CBS's Rami Inocencio in Tel Aviv has the latest.
Ed, good evening. An advisor to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told our CBS News team the end of the war will come with the end of Hamas in Gaza, and that Israel is united in the need to achieve all of its war objectives. But as we saw tonight, this country is far from united.
The fear from some families of those still held hostage by Hamas is that the destruction of the militant group could mean the death of their loved ones. Tonight, supporters of those captive rallied for their peaceful release and against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's vow to invade Rafah.
This is one of the biggest anti-government pro-ceasefire rallies since October 7th. Israel says it will not send a delegation to Cairo for talks with Hamas until the militant group responds to its proposal.
The ceasefire that may suspend this bloody war, now nearly 7 months on, hinges on a swap for hostages. The pause would reportedly be weeks long. For every one hostage Hamas releases, Israel would release a larger number of Palestinians held in Israeli jails. Aviva Siegel wants that ceasefire to happen. Her American husband, Keith, is in Hamas's hands.
He's been there too long, lying on a mattress on the floor, been starved.
Siegel knows what her husband is going through. She too was held hostage by Hamas, but released after 51 days.
I said, I'm going to Keith to say goodbye. And I gave him a hug and I said, please be strong for me and I'll be strong for you.
And the White House late Friday again stressed it cannot support Netanyahu's threat to attack Rafah.
We haven't seen a comprehensive plan.
Without Israel having a plan to protect civilians. More than 34,000 people have been killed in Gaza so far, says its health ministry run by Hamas. And more people still die each day, if not from Israeli strikes like this family today in Rafah, then by conditions turning more dire each day, while life implodes in Rafah and across the entire Gaza Strip.
And ceasefire negotiations for today have ended, and with no developments. That's according to a senior Hamas source close to the talks in Cairo. But that source added, tomorrow, a new round will begin.
Let's hope so. Rami Inocencio in Tel Aviv tonight. Thank you. As for how the Biden administration is tracking these talks, let's turn now to Natalie Brand at the White House. Natalie, good evening.
Good evening, Ed. The Biden administration has been focused intensely all week on pushing for this ceasefire hostage release deal. The Secretary of State saying that would be a way to move things in a different direction as pressure grows politically within the president's own party. A new letter signed by nearly 90 House Democrats urges the administration to look into potentially restricting certain weapons transfers to Israel over concerns Prime Minister Netanyahu has restricted the flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza in violation of federal law. Public sentiment is also weighing on the White House, faced with growing college demonstrations and youth leaders and Arab American and Muslim community members voicing deep frustration with the administration's handling of Israel and Gaza. Nationwide, a new poll shows nearly 4 in 10 Americans say the U.S. is doing too much to support Israel in its war with Hamas, up from about 30% in January. Now, next week, President Biden is scheduled to meet privately with the King of Jordan as Arab nations have pushed for a ceasefire. And on Tuesday, the White House says he will be speaking out against rising anti-Semitism at the Holocaust Memorial Museum here in Washington. Ed?
Natalie Brand at the White House. Thanks. College graduation season's underway amid ongoing protests on several campuses. CBS's Amanda Starantino is in Los Angeles with word of new unrest today. Amanda, good evening.
Good evening, Ed. This is the time of the year when college students are typically celebrating, but frustration and even fear now mark the end of the school year.
Shame on you! Shame on you! Tensions escalating at the University of Virginia with state troopers in gas masks and riot gear making arrests. Protesters are removed as police dismantle the encampment by force. An emergency alert posted by security calls the protest unlawful. A campus crackdown also at University of Michigan with this overnight clash between police and demonstrators. That heavy security in stadium aisles as well today for graduates at the university's commencement ceremony. Pro-Palestinian protesters paraded through the graduating class.
We're still here, we're still fighting, and we're going to be fighting until our demands are met.
Amid all this campus unrest, graduation season is underway with ceremonies today at Indiana University and UConn. But for many grads, there may be no pomp and circumstance. Columbia University's May 15th celebration could be in jeopardy. That would be another sting for the graduates who already missed out on their 2020 high school celebrations because of the pandemic. Columbia President Manoush Shafiq acknowledged the disappointment for these COVID generation students.
For those of you who are seniors, you're finishing college the way you started, online.
USC has canceled its traditional commencement ceremony. Instead, a Trojan family graduate celebration will take place Thursday at the historic LA Coliseum. But the class of 2024 will have to share that stadium space with previously booked events. Ed.
Amanda Starantino in Los Angeles. Thanks. Now to Florida, where two teens caught on camera dumping buckets of trash into the ocean off Boca Raton have turned themselves in. Video of the trashing went viral this week. The 15 and 16-year-olds went to police Friday. They face third-degree felony charges. And at his annual meeting for shareholders, Warren Buffett, the so-called Oracle of Omaha and the founder of Berkshire Hathaway, laid out today what's supposed to happen once he's gone. Buffett said Greg Abel, who's been overseeing much of Berkshire Hathaway, will make investing decisions as the future CEO. Buffett turns 94 in August, but has signaled no plans to go yet. Berkshire Hathaway has about $189 billion in cash and an equity portfolio worth about $860 billion. And we learned today of the death of artist Frank Stella, his large-scale minimalist black paintings that took the art world by storm in the 1950s. Later, he created colorful works that seemed to repudiate his youth. Frank Stella died in New York City. He was 87. Still to come on the CBS Weekend News, we take you to a high school where all 130 seniors have been accepted by colleges. Caitlin Clark shows fans and fellow players she's ready for the big time. But first, a faded queen gets her crown back.
Queen Mary, Queen of the Seas, 80,000 tons, over 1,000 feet long. The most magnificent ship the world has ever seen.
That was March 1936 as the majestic Mary left Scotland, where she was built, steaming to Southampton for her maiden voyage. Cunard Line spared no expense constructing the luxury liner. She was in a class all her own. But 50 years later, she'd become just a tourist attraction in Long Beach, California. Decades of disinterest and not so benign neglect dimmed her majesty, and she became a royal burden. Now, as Tom Waite shows us, the Queen reigns again.
The Queen Mary approaches her final resting place at Long Beach.
To great fanfare in 1967, the Queen Mary makes landfall for the last time in Long Beach, California. Today, the majestic ocean liner sits proudly at the port.
There's a soul here that other ships don't have, but the Queen Mary has it.
Commodore Everett Horde has been looking after the Queen for 43 years. If the ship has a soul, he is the heart.
She's the closest thing to a living being that I have ever commanded.
The Queen Mary is a floating museum.
A farewell party for the 1,200 passengers.
Once the playground for the rich and famous, transporting Hollywood royalty and actual royals, Winston Churchill also took trips aboard the ship, guided from this very bridge.
This is the automatic pilot right here.
But the Queen Mary's reign almost came to an end. After decades in port, the mighty ship fell into disrepair and was in danger of sinking.
And the Queen Mary is a lucky ship. I believe the ship has a bit of a providential kiss upon her.
Perhaps that kiss kept the ship afloat. Like other iconic ships, the Queen Mary, with its opulent Art Deco interior, made the transition from a luxury liner to a critical military asset during World War II.
All 2,000 portholes and windows were quickly blacked out. All running lights were extinguished for the next 6 years.
In 1947, the Queen Mary resumed passenger voyages, but with air travel becoming popular, the ship would be retired. The city of Long Beach bought it in 1967 to be a waterfront tourist attraction.
Give the old Queen a tremendous welcome.
But decades later, the pandemic shut down the Queen Mary, and in 2021, the city of Long Beach took control again to save it.
And we evaluated the options to scrap the Queen Mary and the cost to fully restore it and the cost to protect it. And we ultimately made the decision as a city council to give the Queen Mary another shot.
A new partnership with Evolution Hospitality would revive the deteriorating ship and even turn a profit.
The ship does everything it can to create these fun and exciting things to do, and then once we make money, we put it right back into the ship.
The liner's grandeur is attracting new generations of fans.
I want the Queen Mary's legacy to be one of beauty, splendor, heroism.
So now it's up to the Queen's visitors to keep the legacy alive. As long as they keep coming, the Queen Mary will endure. Tom Waite, CBS News, Long Beach, California.
Still ahead on the CBS Weekend News, hooping it up. She was a star in the NCAA. Can she shine in the pros?
45 blocks last year. Clark for three.
From the University of Iowa to the School of Hard Knocks, basketball star Caitlin Clark last night made it look easy, showing she can compete in the big leagues. In a preseason WNBA game, the newest player on the Indiana Fever drilled basket after basket before a sold-out crowd in Arlington, Texas, home of the Dallas Wings. She scored 21 points, but that wasn't enough to keep her team from falling to the Wings, 79-76. This is May 4th, the unofficial celebration of all things Star Wars.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
This clip from the film's 1977 trailer, the year it debuted in theaters. But what started out in a galaxy far, far away is now a worldwide phenomenon. People of all ages.
May the 4th be with you. Always.
Yes, even President Biden and actor Mark Hamill joining the fun. Hamill, who's now 72, also made a surprise appearance at the White House briefing on Friday. And even this reporter, from his head to his toes, is a big fan of Star Wars. You're never too short to be a stormtrooper. Next on the CBS Weekend News, the high school where every senior has been accepted into college. American high schools take pride in the percentage of their graduates who are accepted into college. In tonight's Weekend Journal, CBS's Noel Brennan takes us to a school in suburban Chicago that isn't satisfied with anything less than 100%.
Graduation day is weeks away.
Justin Anderson.
But this class of 2024,
Quentin Cherry,
deserves to be called out early.
Benjamin Hunt.
It's tradition at Southland College Prep Charter High School in Richton Park, Illinois.
I was like, oh my gosh.
And for seniors like London Williams.
We're almost there.
Before they accept diplomas, they celebrate acceptance.
Yes, I have been accepted to 43 different schools and I applied to 51.
London may have the most to choose from, but every student can mark their college on a map. The entire graduating class accepted. At this point, it's practically expected.
Michael Childress, attending Stanford University.
This year makes 11 in a row for the graduating class at the predominantly African-American high school.
Every single class at Southland has been admitted to college. Can you give yourselves a round of applause for that?
A streak of excellence, unbroken by a pandemic.
But it was a difficult 2 years.
Instead, seniors are on track to set records.
And the amount of money rises each year.
The class has amassed $50 million and counting in scholarships.
London Williams, attending Quincy University.
Congratulations.
The class of 2024 is all in. Make some noise for that.
The future is bright for these seniors. And a class that's all in deserves all out celebration. Noel Brennan, CBS News, Richton Park, Illinois.
Good way to end things tonight. That's the CBS Weekend News for this Saturday. First thing tomorrow, CBS Sunday Morning. Then it's Face the Nation. Margaret Brennan's guests include South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, who's releasing a controversial new memoir. I'm Ed O'Keefe in Washington. Thanks for watching. Good night.